everyone, it's Roger here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast, and in this episode I'm joined by a special guest, Kasey from What's on Netflix. So in this episode we're going to be talking all about Netflix, Disney Plus, but also the big streaming wars and everything that's been going on. But I thought it'd be kind of interesting to kind of get an entirely different view from kind of pretty much Netflix, kind of having also a Netflix expert on hand to kind of get his opinion and what's going on within like their community and stuff. As you know, obviously with us being Disney Plus, we know lots of it. So, Kasey, do you want to just introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi there. Yeah, I'm Kasey. I work on What's on Netflix. I've been doing it from around 2013 now, so that must mean six years coming up. And the sort of the landscape's changing, and it's good to be here to discuss it.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I think 2013, I was writing all about Disney little figures, so and they completely vanished. They all went. So kind of over time, it's been interesting to see how sort of the landscape with sort of Netflix, because it kind of was that thing of Netflix was the be all and end all. You know, it had everything on there. You know, you could pretty much watch everything on there, and everyone kind of got used to that. And you could dump your Sky and your Comcast and all the rest of it. Just watch everything on Netflix for really cheap. But of course, things have really changed in the last few years, haven't they?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, when we first started, I mean, it came out in the UK, I think it was around 2013, the same time as I started it. And I saw an advert on the television, which is, I don't see many adverts nowadays because I'm pretty much just cut the cord completely at my place. So I started Netflix and I had a look through it and got addicted to a few shows. But by the time I started, there wasn't any Netflix originals. And obviously we're now gone past the 1,200 mark of Netflix originals. So yeah, it's moved on very quickly. The library's sort of shifting in the direction, and it's basically Netflix's sort of third business change, because obviously when they first started, they were a DVD distribution company. Yeah. Doing it for everyone, and then they sort of become the aggregator, which is more of Hulu's role, and now they're fully on board with original content.
Yeah, I must admit, I was a Netflix DVD subscriber, and I used to get them through the post, and that was it. You used to do that for years, and it was that kind of thing of between that and Love Film and just getting DVDs through. And for me, I didn't actually jump on board to Netflix till Daredevil. That was my jumping in point. That was the point of. The Netflix original was what brought me into it, because all the movies and stuff I had on DVDs, it was that original which brought me in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and really what it comes down to is that Netflix have to pick up the pace, and as most people know, they're spending a ridiculous amount of money on the originals, because when you compare it against what Disney Plus is coming up with, which is more reliant, I'd say, on its back catalogue than potentially its originals to start with, they're basically trying to replicate maybe 80 years worth of Disney content within the span of a few years, which is no easy task.
Well, this is the thing of, I think, like with Disney Plus, is that it's kind of got that advantage over like Netflix and Amazon in the fact that they've got all these TV channels churning out TV shows. So they're making that stuff for that. They've also got all these big blockbusters. So like I said, if you took the budget of all of those TV shows and movies and put them all onto Disney Plus, it would be a big spend. It's just how it kind of on paper and how they release stuff is very differently. Whereas
they've had decades to experiment and do shows that worked and some shows that didn't. You know, the whole landscape's changing. You know, even when it spans to the cinema. You know, I was thinking the other day, I've only been to the cinema twice this year, which is unheard of. And one of them was for a Disney movie, and the one was from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and that's it.
I'll be honest. I mean, it's like the Disney events get me in there. It's all the big blockbusters, but
is there many films outside of Disney that you go to the cinema anymore?
The odd one, you know, like kind of the big, like, you know, the Fantastic Beasts and a few of the other and the big ones, but not a huge amount. I think the Disney ones definitely seem to be pulling me in. I mean, even the DC ones have kind of dropped off of them, but it's like you say, the people aren't going to the cinema the same. I mean, you look at, like, you know, when I think back to watching like comedies and action movies, and they've all gone Netflix. I mean, how many times now I sit there and watch a movie like that recent one with like Adam Sandler, you know, that kind of thing of like all the Adam Sandler movies. I love them on Netflix because I always used to watch them, you know, and quite often I would go to cinema but they don't release them at cinemas anymore.
No, and that's the way it's gone. I mean, and there's arguments that both Disney and Netflix has had a big hand in this, because you could argue that Disney has basically created the big must-see blockbuster, and how can a movie that's got a fairly low budget compete when you're paying the same price as something like Endgame, which has all these characters that's taken decades to build up? How can anyone compete with that? It's
So I've got a few questions and stuff that I wanted to kind of ask you, and that was first off, what do you actually think of Disney Plus yourself, as just for yourself?
Yeah, I think their lineup is absolutely impressive, and I think the synergy when it comes to Hulu and ESPN, I mean, you cannot fault Disney in their position of basically owning a whole cross segment, and you know that's it's very impressive, and the originals I think have to prove their existence still. I think everyone's sort of geared up for The Mandalorian and a couple of the Marvel series, but beyond that, that's kind of it's kind of hit or miss, it looks like. And something that you mention on your podcast regularly is Disney's recent insistence on rebooting and redoing everything.
Yeah, it's funny because I did recently just was like writing up an article all about this kind of thing, of because so many people message me going, it's all just reboots, it's all remakes, it's all sequels. It's like, no, there isn't. There is actually original stuff there, but when, say, like I do a story or a video on it, nobody watches or reads it. It just doesn't. You put out Home Alone's being rebooted, millions. It's that thing of, it's like, well, they are doing stuff. It just does not smash through social media the same way that, you know, a Home Alone sequel does.
Yeah, and that works the same. I mean, you must have heard of Netflix's cancellations this year. That's something people seem to bound on. But if the OA got renewed for season 3 recently, that would have kind of just been a fragment. You know, it would have gone by in the news cycle really quickly. But because Netflix literally cannot renew every show, and it's been overblown anyway compared to how the percentages work with other networks, and particularly Amazon, who's pretty trigger happy with its series too. It's just, it creates a bad press, but of course Disney doesn't have that yet, so it's everything's brand new, isn't it? So it's I think that whole thing of like you say, like Netflix cancelling things, like essentially the third season seems to be the hot one. I wouldn't be so, and I mean the amount of TV shows I would watch on like Sci-Fi and Sky, and you'd then read online and go, oh, it's been cancelled. You know, it happens all the time on television, but Netflix seem to have got this bad reputation. It wouldn't be so bad if they maybe went, this will be the final season, and they finish it properly rather than just scrap them. Yeah, we've seen that recently where Netflix is trying to get ahead of the curve, and with 13 Reasons Why and Trinkets, they've renewed them, and then they call it the final season going into it, because I'm guessing they're at the point now where they have the data to back up that this show is not going to get the same sort of numbers that it did before. So yeah, it's interesting, and it's good trying out shows. It's hard to get invested in them when they potentially could be axed. Sometimes it's nice to know that it's going to cover the story at least. But you know, it's the world of TV. It's nothing new.
I mean, the amount of times you see stuff, especially for us here in the UK, where, you know, shows would be coming onto Sky after maybe 6-8 months of they've been out in the US, and you already know they've been cancelled. So it was always that thing of like, no, it's been cancelled, I'm not even bothering.
Yeah, and particularly, and likewise with Americans liking British shows like Peaky Blinders and Sherlock. It's like, why isn't it here every year? Why you took a 2-year hiatus to bring us 3 episodes in the case of Sherlock? It's
been quite funny because, like, again, with that British thing of like low-key, recently it was like 6 episodes, and The Mandalorian's I think 8, and all these kind of things. And I'm like, as for us Brits, I think we're so used to that's not really that. I didn't even like flinch and didn't even think about it, because 13 and 22 is kind of the standard numbers for us Brits. We're kind of very used to those short seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. One question I was actually going to ask you is, Disney Life has obviously been operating here in the UK for a while now. I don't believe it's had the penetration that Disney Plus potentially has. I was wondering what you thought, where Disney Life has gone wrong in the past, and how much of a gap that Disney Plus can bring it, because essentially it's the same product just with a few add-ons, right?
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, I've been subscribed to Disney Life pretty much since it launched, and I did drop off for a little bit in the middle when the problem I think for Disney Life is, first off, they came in at that high price point, $9.99. They included the books, the CDs, the games, and all the rest of it, and that wasn't working. And I think the problem was they didn't really commit to it. They still had to deal with Sky, they still had to deal with Netflix, and the Disney Channel gets stuff so late here compared to the US that by the time like I've just started watching like season 1 of Big City Greens and DuckTales and all. These are like onto their second seasons. It's way too late. I don't think that's helped. And also, such a focus essentially on what I would call like Disney Channel and Disney movies, way too Disney focused. The Marvel and Star Wars stuff kind of got, other than Star Wars, Clone Wars and Rebels, there's not really any other Star Wars stuff on there. And I think they went way too kids, and that's why they're focusing so much more on Disney. Because I view Disney Life as the Disney Plus beta. That was this kind of, they ran this for a few years, saw that, and the minute they decided to do it, they just seemed to have dropped Disney Life like a can. Every single advert stopped. Just no more updates, no more. It very much felt like, oh, we're bringing a new streaming service out, right? That Disney Life, yeah. Don't bother. Don't make a PlayStation app or anything like that.
Yeah,
I don't think that helped. Not having all the apps, because I have to have a Fire Stick plugged into my Xbox because none of my devices will. I had literally had to buy a Fire Stick to watch Disney Life because none of my devices would actually have the app on it.
Yep, that's the same here. I only noticed it by chance, I think, on my television once. I signed up for it. And I like Disney movies, but I think they're quite complementary to a library, which is where I think that bundle is going to become a huge thing. But even that is really complicated in the global streaming context, because obviously in the UK we don't have Hulu and we don't have ESPN. So what's that going to be bundled with here to make it a more attractive proposition?
I think, for us Brits, I think we're going to go through a massive shift with Sky. Now that Comcast and, everything's going to, because, I was having this discussion with my wife recently, and I sort of turned around and I was like, did you know all the shows we watch? Yeah, I said, majority of them are ABC and Fox and FX shows. We don't watch, and a few HBO shows. So there's not really a lot of Comcast Universal shows we watch. Yeah. So what we're watching on Now TV won't be here in a few years' time. And people don't, us Brits, we don't really I kind of look at Now TV as almost like a Hulu version, really.
Yeah, but of course that's going to change, as you say, because both the HBO contract and Disney contract is up next year with Sky. So how that changes for Sky is going to be very, very interesting. And there's arguments to be made for a fragmentation. You could argue, like the HBO Max service, you're going to get a lot more than potentially that they slowly licensed out over time. And likewise with Disney Plus, because Netflix only really has maybe 20 to 30 Disney movies on at any one time. Yeah. So it's hardly the back catalogue that most people crave for. And that's basically what people are going to have to decide, is whether that's worth it and to swap out the subscriptions. And I think most households are going to end up with maybe 2 or 3 subscriptions that they subscribe to year round, and then cycle through the rest of them. And really, it's a case of which businesses can cement themselves as the year round ones that are going to be successful.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be. This was one of the questions was, how do you think like Netflix is going to be able to handle all this increased competition with HBO Max, Apple TV? I'm still not too sure on that, how that's going to work. CBS Access, all the rest of it. There's a lot of competition out there now.
Yeah, for sure. I think they've already cemented themselves with a few tentpole shows. I mean, like the Stranger Things, people are going to come back to that one. It's massively watched, and they do seem to be able to get into the zeitgeist with some of these big movies that they pump out. But of course, another problem that Netflix has got is the amount of content they're putting out, because they're trying to fill those decades worth of content gaps that compared to their competitors. And there are lots of hitters, and there is a heck of a lot of misses too. I mean, I can think of 2 in the last week where in the last few weeks, like Wu Assassins released, and it's good for what it is, but whether that's going to retain a massive audience is another answer. And then you've got Another Life, which was just completely panned, and I could barely get 10 minutes into it.
Yeah, I think this is the thing, isn't it? I'm trying to, and I know Disney have been using that kind of, we offer quality rather than quantity, and it's like, but some of these shows that you're announcing just feel like quality or quantity. There's a thing. Some of them are a little bit sort of feel like filler, but I mean, to me, like HBO Max sounds like a great combination, but I don't think Warner Brothers or AT&T or whatever they want to call themselves now, they don't seem to have got that. They're so fragmented all over the place. They don't seem to have got all their brands together.
Yeah, for sure. And people don't realize who makes their shows, actually, because Warner Brothers has a huge back catalogue of content which you would not associate with them. So they actually don't have that with the brand. So Friends is known as an NBC show for all intents and purposes, but it's actually a Warner Brothers. And likewise, me and you were both confused as to the future of Pretty Little Liars recently. I had no idea it was a Warner show.
Yeah, I was like, they said it was going to HBO Max, and going, there's a Freeform show. And it's like, no, it isn't.
And that's the behind the scenes stuff. So really what it's going to come down to is which brands carry the most weight, I think, with a lot of people, because Netflix is still using those arms dealers with Warner. So they still make, they're making Sandman, for example. That got announced after the fact that HBO. And that's probably where I think Warner's strategy is a little bit better than potentially Disney's, because Disney's going, we want everything under our roof. We're cutting ties with everyone. That's it. Whereas Warner's going, we don't mind as long as you pay us the most money, and we'll eventually get it back anyway. So that's
you can see them all kind of. Comcast is kind of sticking to the idea of what used to work, and kind of we'll go with adverts and give it away for free. I mean, I must be honest. I mean, all the Friends and Office stories over the past few months. I mean, it must have been quite an experience from your side of things, of your website.
Yeah, for sure. So they are two massive shows. They've been The Office has been on Netflix for longer than I can remember, and I remember Friends getting added on in early 2015. So it's been on for 5 years, and they are shows that people stream over and over again. So, and again, it comes back to that these services will be set up to be complete anchors for these shows in the future. So that when you're going there, that's what you're getting. And I think that's the same with Netflix, but again, they've just got a bit of catch up to play. But I do believe that they're catching up. I mean, just from a pure number standpoint, I mean, we've got 1,250 originals now, with at least 300 in development that we know of.
Yeah.
And the brands that have picked up, like The Witcher and all the Roald Dahl books, it's impressive. And the amount of money that's going into all of these services, frankly, impressive. So.
Yeah, I definitely think with Netflix, they seem to be going out there and buying up IPs and franchises, things like The Witcher. I mean, I love The Witcher 3, so I'm going to be in on that TV series. Also, things like He-Man and Masters of the Universe did like a new animated series into that.
Yeah.
I still feel like Netflix has got such a big grip on streaming. Where they seem to, they've got this whole Disney versus Netflix. I do laugh at it, that kind of the whole thing of going, it's going to kill it, and and then like going, no, it's not. Netflix is they are one of the superpowers. It's like, if it was Disney Plus versus Apple TV, I could see a bit more of a competition. But like Netflix, I'm going, Netflix isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly, and it comes down to who's got the spending power, because. If the services I'm really concerned for are the likes of AMC and Showtime, where they've got sort of 2 or 3 big shows, and that's really all I could talk about. I mean, the AMC is basically the Walking Dead channel at this point. So you'd maybe subscribe to that for 2 or 3 months at the end of the year to watch all of them, and then what else is there? It's
yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of consolidation in the few years of the smaller ones. Things like Stars, and I think that one there, and I don't think there's enough room for all of these different little streaming services, and 1 or 2 TV shows aren't going to pull you in.
No, and as you said, it's not a zero-sum game. The idea that someone's just got to subscribe to one service all year round is ludicrous. I mean, if you're planning on just watching Disney Plus all year round and that's it, more power to you. But I don't think that's a good streaming diet or entertainment diet. Again, it's part of an overall package, isn't it? And that's something.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this for a while. Of like, people talk about like cable costs, and I'm not subscribing to all these different things. It's going to cost as much as Sky, or like satellite, things like that.
Sure.
And I'm looking at it going, well, say like the standard Sky package is for the entertainment package. It's like £22, £24 a month. It's like, well, I can get Disney Life, Netflix, Amazon, Now TV for less than that combined.
Yeah.
Completely. And I get everything. I think of like when I no longer have the sports channels because I have the WWE network. I have all of that, and it costs me much less than Sky does, and I have pretty much all of them. I mean, I think the trouble is, I think like you say, Netflix set up this tone that you can get everything really cheap.
Yeah, and that it's the case that they're sitting at the top at the moment, and it makes good headlines to go after the big guns. And I think Netflix is probably sitting pretty, thinking that they were at the point 6 years ago where they had zero content under their banner, and now they're considered the ones to beat. And you've got a company like Disney who has a balance sheet with more zeros at the end that I can count. And they're the underdogs, and it's kind of strange how it's sort of flipped.
Yeah, it's that thing, is it? Because I think, like you say, Netflix is so big, but in some ways it's good that they really saw the right. Not only did they see the writing on the wall, but they adjusted very heavily, quickly, didn't they?
Yeah, and also they're focusing on regional exclusives as well. So looking at the Disney Plus lineup, it's still very Americanized. Now, I have no doubt that Disney stuff translates well to somewhere like France and stuff, but when Netflix makes shows specifically for France, it's clearly geared towards that target audience in their native language, and as well as we're seeing with shows like Money Heist, which remains my favorite Netflix series of all time. It's a Spanish show, and it's fantastic, and I'd watch that over most of American shows. And that
there's the one thing with Netflix which gets me, and it's the same thing with Amazon really, when you start up a TV show and it's like the first few words and it's a foreign speaking language, and you're like going, oh no, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to have to look up for my iPad. It's just if I've got to read it, no, it's like...
Yeah, you have to have the patience with it. But if you do invest in some of these foreign shows, it's well worth it. And I was like that to begin with, and I thought Money Heist, I thought, I'm going to have to read the subtitles. But by the end, it's just, you get so engrossed in it that you don't even notice you're watching it. So...
And I also think going forward as well, when you've got other companies like Sony, for example, that seem to be looking at and going, yep, you'll find it out. We're just going to sell to the highest bidder. And now, obviously, with the Viacom and CBS deal going through, because they've got some massive brands. I mean, I think CBS Access, I think, could start being a bit of a player as well with all that content.
Yeah, for sure. If you include that they've got all the Paramount movies now and Nickelodeon and the likes, they've got a complete cross. It really is about ticking every box, and that's what we've seen the Netflix original library doing, is where you have a week's worth of originals, and one's a kid's show that's clearly developed for kids, one's an adult show that's clearly developed that, and then you've got a regional show that's developed for that market. I mean, it's just about being smart and playing and trying to be something for everyone, and whether that works in the long run, I don't know, but yeah, we'll just see.
I must admit, it's one of these things I've said many times about Disney Plus and Hulu, of whether or not to me, it was always that thing of merging them together would have made more sense to compete with the other one. But then you look at that bundle deal they've done, and you go, okay, I see what you're doing. You are offering what looks to be free packages for the same price to get people in.
Yeah, but I mean, the Disney, just sticking the Disney name on it carried so much weight. So I understand why they did it. And Hulu, they sort of, by nature of everyone bailing out or then buying up people, they now own most of Hulu. So it'll be interesting to see Hulu. I think Hulu's going to get a lot of the same press that Netflix has been getting recently, in particular with the likes of Adult Swim going to have to remove their content because that's no doubt heading to HBO Max. All of Warner stuff that continues to be on there. And what else have they got? And Comcast as well. Obviously, Comcast is there for a few years still. But once that contract's up, there's probably not much reason to leave it on there as opposed to putting it on their own platforms.
Yeah, I imagine at some point they either will merge them together or it will just be the ABC, FX, and whatever they're going to be doing with 21st Century Fox right now.
Yes. Butchering it and seeing what's left.
Yeah, like I said the other day, it kind of feels a bit like they've just gone in, they've just brought a house on an auction, they've gone in, they're clearing out all the stuff that's worth anything, and if they don't like the look of it, it's going in the skip.
But I mean, FX shows are still some of my favourite.
Yeah.
hands down. I mean, like Fargo is fantastic, and it's interesting what just to go on a bit of a detour here on what contracts Netflix has still got from these networks, is that ABC. I mean, they've still got Grey's Anatomy in the US, and I don't think it's going to be leaving in actual fact, because if you look who's behind that show, Netflix has obviously signed an overall deal with Shonda Rhimes, who's got 8 projects in the works, and likewise they're keeping their FX shows from Ryan Murphy, so that's and Fox, in fact, because they've still got Glee and they've still got American Horror Story, Pose they picked up, and there's one more which I forgot the name of, but it's strategic as to who they're keeping on or what shows they're keeping on.
I also think as well of like there's so many contracts and there's so many, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is one where it was like there was locked into Netflix until the show ended. You know, these kind of things. There's so many different contracts and they're different in every single country. It's going to take probably years for them to untwine everything. Yeah,
and Disney arguably has made their life difficult going into this, because I mean, Disney Plus is going to launch with, I think it's 4 Marvel movies.
Yeah, it was just like no.
That's hardly the promised back catalogue that most people, and from what I've read online and from experts, is that Disney probably isn't going to have the full library until around 2025, which is a hell of a lot of wait, because even then Netflix is going to get their pay 2 window rights back, and I think you're going to find that Netflix holds on to them dearly, because it makes the Disney.
Yeah. It's really funny. It's funny because you mentioned this pay 2 window, because I remember when you picked this up and you ran it, and I'm there going, okay, this is interesting, and it's like, okay, let's look into it and do so. Yeah. And it was that thing of, and then Bob Iger talked in a conference call thing where he talked about that, and he kind of did. Well, I don't really want to go into too much detail, but we do have the ability to kind of do stuff around. Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know necessarily if I think buy it back, but I would imagine it. The way he sort of said it was a bit more on the lines of, yeah, they have got pay 2 rights, but we also keep it as well. Maybe they can share them for a bit.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
And we're already seeing the pay 2 rights. We're also seeing pay 2 rights with some of the older stuff. So, for example, we're currently getting 2009 Disney movies onto the US as well. And obviously, the UK Netflix still has the second window, because our windows work slightly differently to American windows. So I believe Sky gets it at the moment, and then Netflix gets it, and then poor old Disney Life gets it at the end.
It's like, we get Moana, and you go, Moana? What? And it was like, okay, that was been out a while. But I do think those contracts are, as they disappear, and there is that argument as well of but it's like, I think, what was it, like Mary Poppins Returns will come back to Disney, or back to Netflix in like 2027, and you kind of think it's not really going to hold a lot of clout really at that point in 10 years time.
No, it's not. But it helps Netflix defeat the illusion that Disney Plus is sort of selling itself on a whole back catalogue, and if it's not all there, it's kind of. I wonder how many people will be disappointed with that. I don't think it will make much difference, because I think Mandalorian is what people are going to be smashing through those first few weeks. Yeah.
Do you think Netflix might be holding on to that for like maybe like a trump card to kind of, like, oh no, we need some money, or that kind of thing? No, we'll keep it just in case in 5 years we need to kind of have a big pushback kind of thing.
It's hard to say. I don't know. I think potentially there's the argument of releasing it and maybe getting some money back so they can invest in their own shows, because at the end of the day, a show that's on Netflix forever and they can build a brand around it and make a universe like they're doing with Narnia, for example, is probably far more financially better off in the long run than holding, say, Cars free for another year or 2.
I generally have the feeling of like, you're not going to do it now. You're going to want to put a little bit of pressure on it. I know if I was Netflix at this point, you'd be there going, I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on this. Leave it till a bit, so you get a little bit more bang out your butt for it. And you can't blame them for that.
No, and it's the same with the CW contract as well, because that's obviously now up, and there's a lot of confusion as to what's happening there. And as you mentioned earlier, most of those shows are now being converted to legacy. So as long as they keep running, they'll stay on Netflix. Then 1 or 2. Maybe 3 years after that, then it gets removed and then goes back to its rights holder. But what I am interested in is Once Upon a Time, because Netflix obviously had that and they've still got it. I don't know if that's one that both are going to be sharing.
Yeah, because it was shown on the little icon back at the Investors Day that they've got it. And whether or not the fact that the show's cancelled might be a way that they can kind of pull it off, maybe if it's a year later. I don't know. That was one of those series that my wife started on Netflix and kind of sort of turned around and goes, oh, did you want to watch it? You what season? Oh, you're on season 3. Oh yeah, well that's fine. I guess that was again. It's like things like that, and Agent Carter and a few other ones. And Agents of Shield is the really one for me. Of like, and like, what are they going to do with that one?
Yeah, and of course the Defenders too, because you've got that series too. But how that fits in the Disney Plus lineup, I'm not sure in the long run. It's probably more suited to Hulu, I'd have thought.
Yeah, if they hadn't have announced like Ghost Rider and Hellstrom, I probably would have been like, well, it's not. But now they've done that. But then you got this other line of they can't do anything for like 2 years, and they can't do anything with them. I don't know. It just feels a little bit maybe like they might just hit the reset button completely. I don't know.
Yeah, personally, I think the TV series of the Defenders they all wrapped up their stories. I think Daredevil had a bit more life in it, and potentially Luke Cage did. But I think Jessica Jones probably overstayed its welcome, and Luke Cage, Iron Fist never really got going for me in the first place.
It's really weird because for me it was like they were dropping almost too soon, because I'm sitting here now and I am halfway through every single one of the last seasons. I can't seem to. It's like, shall I put it on or shall I put someone else on? And it's like, they got so lulled in the middle where they just kind of sort of fell off. I mean, you must have probably seen the same interest from your community as well.
Yeah, it kind of just turned into indifference, to be honest. Yeah. And I wonder if there's a bit element of superhero fatigue with that. I mean, everyone's releasing it. But then, having said that, Amazon's The Boys was fantastic, and I watched that all within a night. So, and Netflix has frankly got plenty of their own superhero content to be working on, because they've got an overall deal with Dark Horse Comics, who released The Umbrella Academy and Polar onto Netflix, and Netflix now owns all the Millarworld stuff. So we're going to start seeing the fruits of that next year too.
Yeah, I must admit, I did definitely feel like that superhero fatigue of like I dumped the DC shows. I mean, I tried watching, was it Black Lightning on Netflix? And that one didn't catch in. It was that kind of thing of like, I can't keep up with the Marvel, let alone with the DC. And then you've got all these other ones. I did try the Umbrella Academy, and it's kind of okay. I didn't finish it, and I watching.
Yeah, I was the same. I started Umbrella Academy and was fairly indifferent towards it. It gets around halfway through, and Ellen Page's character starts becoming a bit psychotic, and then it just goes. It's a thing of its own, and it's a really, really good universe. So I'm really looking forward to the second season of that.
And I think this is the key thing, isn't it? Like we say, when you with these streaming services, you fire up stuff that you maybe wouldn't watch, but you watch an episode. I say this to my mum all the time, because some of there's nothing on. I'm like, try something that you don't know what it is. If you don't like it, don't watch the second one. Or if you really don't like it, turn. And I think the streaming world just makes that so much easier, especially having the box sets available, so you can jump back to the beginning if you've misstepped.
Yeah, exactly. But one thing I would say, and this is my personal preference, is that I think Disney Plus, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're going with the weekly episode drops. Is that right? Yeah. So I personally think that's a far better strategy for a business, personally, because if you look at Game of Thrones and the trends on Google, you can see every Sunday it goes like that, whereas Stranger Things went whoop, and then that was basically it died down, because because you can't talk about each episode, because you've either watched it all or you haven't started it, and anywhere in between is spoiler territory, right? So it's
I think that was the trouble, like with the Marvel shows, of like everyone was on different pages and everyone's watching at different times. No one knows where you are. You can't talk about it, and also that kind of thing of like dropping 13. I mean, I will be honest, me and my wife did binge the entire season 3 of Stranger Things in 2 days.
Yeah, same.
And that's that was like the first time we've done that, because it was. But again, I think the weekly drop is better. I think Netflix is the drop. It makes sense when you've missed the first season. And the whole thing of like, maybe drop the first and the second episode, or you can go back and watch the first and second and third seasons as they come along. So if you like jump in on episode 5, I can actually go back to number 1 and catch up. But I do prefer the weekly drop myself.
Yeah, it's funny because they basically started that because that's how the contract worked, right? So they were able to pick up the show for, say, season 2 of something, and they dropped it all at once, and it just sort of carried over to their originals. And But then there's an argument to be made that Netflix's UI is not built for weekly episodes. So, for example, I have a real struggle keeping up with the Patriot Act with Hassan Minhaj that comes out every Sunday. I missed last week's one, but I've just reminded myself that I need to go watch it. There's no sort of structural good way of dropping the episodes, because by the time they release a new episode, they've got 2 new series that are coming out soon.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, isn't it, of just like what Netflix does and how it kind of ties over. And there was kind of an article, and there's a thing that just kind of blew up recently, and that was the concept of password sharing, and sort of Disney Plus were looking to work with Charter to kind of try and stop sharing. And so many, and the community and the response to that story was so like not only mixed, but also so much of like compare Netflix is like they don't care, they encourage it. I mean, what's your feeling on how they deal with like password sharing?
Well, I mean, if we compare to a few years ago, I mean, VPNs were quite widespread at that point, and people use VPNs to jump on other like the American Netflix, for example, that TV series, and Netflix kind of was ambivalent towards it to start with, and then I think they had pressure on them. So I think where the pressure comes to Netflix on this is if they do continue to lose subscribers, which I think is inevitable given that it's going to be more fragmented and people are going to be mixing around. I don't know if they're going to change that. I think it's fundamental. It's a bit like the whole ad thing. People keep saying that Netflix is going to get into ads. I personally can't see it. They don't have the team or the infrastructure in place to do that. And to be honest, I think that would get them more negative press. And frankly, they don't need no more of that this year.
No, I mean, it's that kind of thing, isn't it? Of like, if a show is sponsored by something at the beginning, at the end, it's kind of tolerable. But that's about as far. The minute we go back into having adverts into the middle of it, I think it's always, for me, is like, again, as a Brit, like Netflix kind of changed American television to be more like the BBC for us, where we were used to like the idea. We always had the BBC without adverts, so we were always used to that.
Yeah, sure. And you're going to see more sponsorships. I mean, Stranger Things, I mean, that it had tons of sponsorships in it from brands like, I think Burger King was in it, and they've got the massive Slurpee, and it's Eggos, of course. They put Eggos back on the map, and I'd never heard of them personally. No. But it's there's got to be different ways of monetizing. I think the most egregious one I've seen is watching the episode 1 of The Ranch, and he was drinking a bottle of Budweiser, and he sat the bottle of Budweiser down on the table and perfectly twisted the logo in camera view,
just like now.
And I thought, I'm done with the show. I can't. So as long as it seems natural, and I don't think this is new. I mean, if you watch a Sony movie, I remember watching 2012, and the world was collapsing around him, but he got his Sony phone and laptop out really quickly, just so he had the logo was in place.
I still always think back to like Transformers, I think Age of Extinction, where there's just like drinking some like milkshake and drinking Bud, and it is that kind of thing of like how they've got to fund all of this. But I just kind of also just want to say about like from like your community of like the feedback to you, what is the kind of the general feeling of the streaming wars and like Disney Plus as a whole?
Yeah, I think people are planning for it. I think my point of view is as long as people are ditching the cord, I think you're gaining an infinite more choice. I quite like the idea of swapping. I don't like how people are saying, well, that means that company's dead, because it's not a zero-sum game, and it's in everyone's interest for a good competition to be in here where everyone can thrive, frankly, because if it's only Disney,
it's going to be $6.99 for very long.
No, exactly. And the content offerings is going to be fairly poorer too, I think, because if you look at the box office at the moment, where Disney doesn't have much competition, they have been able to just pump out reboots and basically get away with it. And there is an element that who am I to judge when they're making $1 billion every time? So
it's a really like weird thing of like whenever this stuff comes up about the reboots and the remakes and all the rest of it, and you're going, but like that, like Wrinkle in Time didn't do it. When they do release stuff and they, what's that Racing in the Rain kind of thing of like, well, no one went to cinema to see it. It's like, well, it's hard to, like I said, everything's changed. But then you go, they made $1 billion on The Lion King, and they're only they're following the money. I don't think it can last like this. I think that there's only so many they can do.
Yeah, that's true. Completely agreed. I mean, it's playing on nostalgia, and when everyone's fighting for your time and everyone's time is limited, big brands and nostalgia plays a huge part. You know, there's no denying that. I mean, you know, it's easier to go and sit and turn your brain off to an old movie that you've watched 100 times than it is to start something that's complex as, say, the German series Dark, where you have to get a spreadsheet out to manage the plot lines, you know?
Yeah, I think it was a bit like that with was it The Man in the Castle on Amazon? There was a bit a few episodes into it, going, I don't get what's going on. But I think, as I would like to say, I think we've got used to all these different, you know, we've got used to, you know, Amazon and Hulu and Disney Plus and things. But it's all these unknown things. I mean, it's like Apple TV. I mean, we've seen a little bit of that at the minute, and they're kind of launching up. And we kind of joked about them a bit early on. But do you think they're going to be much of a competition for Netflix and Disney Plus and stuff?
They've certainly got the money to. They've certainly got the money to cause problems. The only thing I would say is that I've now looked at their show with Jennifer Aniston, Steve Carell, and Reese Witherspoon, who are mostly known for their comedies, and I thought they'd come together to do a comedy. And no, it's a drama that touches on quite controversial issues, and they've spent nearly 300 million on it already, which they had a budget of $1 billion, and that's nearly blown through a third of it just with one show. So we'll see. I think they've got the money. They don't have any back catalogue from what I can tell, unless they go on a spending spree and pick up the likes of AMC and some of the smaller ones we were talking about. I think we're going to see a lot of mergers. I mean, I personally think Netflix needs to do a merger at this point to get a good back catalogue, especially when it comes to movies. It's just they'll want to do it where it benefits them cost-wise.
It's that thing as well. I mean, it's that thing of, like, do you think, like, someone could buy out Netflix? Do you think that could be another possibility?
Sure. I mean, the argument, there's been a long time that it would have to be a company like Google, but then Google's got YouTube, so that's kind of... maybe another one. Microsoft or Apple is really the two main contenders, I think. But Netflix is at the height of their game at the moment. The conversation will probably change in the next couple of years once the stock price actually has a true reflection of Netflix's...
I mean, there's that kind of big thing, really, I think, with Netflix, of the amount that they're spending on original content and how much their debt is. But the trouble is with Netflix as well is that they've only got one... like business, they've only got the one thing they're doing, whereas maybe like Amazon and Disney and Apple and all the rest, you know, they've got multiple pies going on at the same time. So if one goes down, they've got something else. Whereas Netflix is kind of like the one-trick pony.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, they're all trying to get into this business, so they clearly see potential in it. I mean, you could make the argument that Hulu's never made money. You know, that's massively in debt, and I would probably say that probably is even more debt than Netflix is. And if they cannot make Hulu work or Disney Plus work, what's going to happen there? Because if let's say Disney Plus, people know that movie's going to come out in 6 months' time on Disney Plus, is that going to hemorrhage ticket sales? And that's still their bread and butter. So if it starts biting into that, will that change their model? And likewise, that goes for Warner too.
I think it's like, for me, I sort of look at it and go, you know, like you say about like people not going to the cinema. It's like, I think like that's already happened, and that's why all these movies, you know, like Paramount and, you know, Sony and all the rest of them, they're like, that's already happening at the cinema, and they're already worried. And Disney can see where it's going and where they want to go into. I mean, I think Hulu, the trouble with Hulu was that it was always this kind of weird concoction of like 4 or 5 companies that can't work together, trying to compete against Netflix with not really wanting to really do it. And it was well, we've got to kind of do it, but we don't really want to kind of do it either.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of, you know, they're chasing after Netflix, which, given if you base your evaluation on them on debt, is not a success. You know, it's kind of, they're all chasing something, but there is a brand in Netflix because it's become a thing that everyone just has in their households. You know, it's
it's there, isn't it? So it's almost like, you know, phone, internet, Netflix, water, electricity. People think like that in that term of entertainment now.
Yeah, and it's everywhere too. Every country's got it, and that's potentially with I mean, Disney Plus is obviously having to do a phased rollout for contract reasons and whatnot, and the idea that launching around the world is no easy feat. I mean, Netflix basically rolled out into several countries over a period of a few years, but I think they were given grace by the fact that they were kind of newcomers and it was brand new. And then eventually they just flipped the switch and said, yeah, we're everywhere now, with the exception of China and North Korea. So
I also think for me it's that weird thing of, big companies, all these different contracts they've got in place in different the internet and social media has changed how we all communicate and how we see stuff. We see an advert on TV for a movie out in America this weekend. We just see the date and think that it's for us as well, because the way the advertising and everything works. And so they have had to adopt this kind of global rollout. And so, ideally, Disney Plus, I think they would have been better off just going, it's everywhere, but you're going to be limited per area depending on contracts, rather than this rollout of like hippie. It's like, because everyone wants to watch The Mandalorian. They could. I think they didn't.
How are we going to be able to watch The Mandalorian here?
I don't know. I'm really not sure how this is going to go. And again, it brings up the questions of VPNs, logging in from America, piracy. They say they're going to put it on other networks and stuff if they, where it makes sense. But then I can't help but think, like, with the thinking of like England and also UK and Europe, maybe January, they might be going, we'll just wait and they can do it then. They are encouraged. We're all so much more rabid for this stuff, and I still can't believe they haven't thought of this through a little bit more, because I think The Mandalorian just not being out everywhere, they are encouraging. I don't know. It's going to be odd. It's just a strange rollout. They've got to work something out quickly. It depends really on when this European one, because obviously at the moment when we're recording this, we don't know what's really happening in Europe outside of the Netherlands. But it could be December, it could be January. It might not be quite as bad as we're hoping for. But that first week, we're all going to want to. We don't want to be spoiled. The only thing is that weekly drop might make it a bit easier, but we might be able to catch up by the time it comes through.
Potentially, and again, that comes to the big conversation, doesn't it? Where everyone wants an easy experience, and if they can't get access to the content that they want, how is this streaming world any better than how it was before? And that's and I do think that we're going to see a big return to piracy, unfortunately. But that's just the nature of someone saying, well, say with Apple TV Plus, can someone justify paying £10 to watch one show? It's
Yeah, I still think they're coming in with an idea for them a little bit kind of, I think there's some of their estimates of how many subscribers are going. It's like, the audience aren't willing to pay for like this one show, like you say with Jennifer Aniston. I watch that and go, that would be a Netflix movie for me, and that's and I don't know if everyone going to look at that and go, oh, well, I must pay £10 a month for that.
Yeah, and I think that's where Netflix has got their library right, because they're trying to get a real mix of shows to do something for everyone, and if you don't like it, there's loads of other stuff that you can watch straight away. Even looking at the last week where there's 5 things that I watched. So I watched the Invader Zim movie over the weekend. That was really good. And then they had Mindhunter, and that's just last week. There was another 5, and then this week's another 5, and then next week's another 5. You're never going to, and you could argue that Netflix has actually destroyed the value proposition, because how can someone compete with 5 shows against someone that's pumping out 5 of every week?
Do you think they'll slow that down a bit?
I think it will eventually. We're going to come to the pace where they've met their peak of what they can spend every year. But yeah, I think so.
And also in terms of how much they're putting out there for us to watch, because like you say, they're not really gaining a lot of value in each, like you say, like Stranger Things, they drop all 8 episodes at once, but they're not getting those hits. They're only getting that news beat that one week.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a criticism we have, and frankly, that's why our website exists, to help promote these shows, because I don't envy the marketing team, because by the time they've made a strategy for one show, there's another 5 that have crept up that they have to now work on. So
I think that's in some way. I think like with like Disney Plus, how that's going to help is that by nearly every 3 to 4 weeks, there's going to be the big blockbuster kind of pull people in. Then you're going to have like the weekly shows and stuff, but. I definitely think it's like now of like going, well, Stars has got this, and HBO we're going to get the Fox movies, and we don't know what's that. It's all a bit messy for a few years, but hopefully it will all line up in the long run. But anything else you wanted to add before we kind of finish off this episode?
No. I look forward to hopefully revisiting very soon, because I think it's going to change very, very quickly in the world of streaming. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. I've been following it for 6 years, so hopefully the next 6 are just as good.
So where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so we're at What's on Netflix. So if you just either Google What's on Netflix or it's whatsonnetflix.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. Basically the same setup as you guys, really.
Yes. So on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Remember as well, you can go hit that subscribe button on the audio version and also on YouTube as well. Go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. And we shall see you guys in every episode. Laters.